Welcome in and welcome back. I thought I would share some thoughts on the Disney Investor Day where they unleashed a myriad of announcements from Star Wars, from Marvel, from Pixar, from Disney proper, for the theaters, and for Disney Plus in specific. A lot of things going on, but there were really six big announcements on the Marvel side of things, two things for the theaters, and four things for Disney Plus that I thought would be worth just running down a little bit. I will start where that presentation ended. I believe it's where it ended, if I'm remembering correctly, and that is with the announcement of Fantastic Four coming to us from the director, John Watts. A surprise announcement. I don't know if anyone expected John Watts to be the individual who would be helming the Fantastic Four property for Disney. For Marvel, I think that a lot of it has to do with the fact that he has done an admirable job with Spider-Man. Now, the Spider-Man movies have been a little bit cookie cutter, but they've been really good for the characters involved. And what I mean by that is that there's not a whole lot of thumbprint on the DNA of those movies, but the characters have shown through. When you think of DNA on a movie in the Marvel Universe, you think of Guardians of the Galaxy. You know where that came from. You know that James Gunn made that movie. If you saw Thor Ragnarok, you understand, yeah, that's a Taika Waititi film. If you saw the original Thor, that's a Branagh movie. It feels like a Branagh movie, a Kenneth Branagh movie. I can't remember the guy who directed the very first Captain America, but it feels like that type of movie. The Spider-Man movies do not have a thumbprint on them, but they have serviced the characters involved in those movies very well. They have also played very well into the overall cinematic universe that Marvel has created and established, so that when you have a crossover event like the Avengers, you don't wonder how Spider-Man is going to fit into that palette. He just shows up and does so. It's a little bit different with the Guardians of the Galaxy. You almost worry about them in the hands of another director. Is another director going to be able to pull out of those characters what it was that James Gunn did? This does raise a couple of questions for the Fantastic Four series. One, are we going to get one of the crossover events with Spider-Man? So Spider-Man was crossing over with Iron Man. Is it going to be the Fantastic Four moving forward? The Spider-Man character did a lot of interacting with the Fantastic Four in the comic books. They are something like a natural fit. It also makes you wonder if something is going to happen to Aunt May that makes Spider-Man want a family. After all, the Fantastic Four are the first family of the Marvel Universe. So it's going to be interesting to see how they interact on screen. I am not sure I wanted John Watts to take this movie. I'm not sure I wanted this to be a John Watts joint, but John Watts does have a little bit of experience with horror. And when you're talking about the Fantastic Four, there are certainly some horrific elements that could be explored in this film. It does make me wonder, with all of the time travel and quantum stuff going on, if we are going to get a Fantastic Four movie that is intersecting the current events in the Marvel Cinematic Universe versus spawning in them. That is to say, a movie that is not happening in real time, but is coinciding with real-time events in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Perhaps this Fantastic Four is from a different time period, but they are existing in the current day Marvel, which it would be interesting. It would be an interesting twist, especially for the Fantastic Four characters, and the way that the Fantastic Four interact with each other does not feel of this age. I think that's fair to say. So, what are we getting there? The second thing that was introduced for the theaters during this presentation by Kevin Feige was AntMan and the Wasp: Quantum Mania. uh, there had been a lot of conjecture as to whether or not Ant-Man was going to get a third movie, or whether they would not. So look, I think to me it's always been obvious that Ant-Man was going to get a third film. Number one, 2 movies in, it was already a $1 billion franchise. 2 movies in, the Ant-Man series, the Ant-Man franchise, was a $1 billion franchise. 2 movies in, Ant-Man, $1 billion. So it was obvious to me from that standpoint that you have a character which is marketable, which does bring people in, not quite to the extent that an Iron Man does, not quite to the extent that a Thor does, a Captain America, etc., etc., Guardians of the Galaxy. Fine. But what does that mean? Where, pray tell, might the strength be in bringing a profitable, but not wholly so, profitable character back to the big screen? Number one, you've got a little bit of legacy there. You aren't getting Iron Man back. You're not getting Captain America back. Who knows how much longer we'll have Thor? So you have this character that is firmly rooted in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that you're going to be able to continue with that franchise. Number two, you've got a whole lot of freedom to introduce some new things. If you're going to make these Ant-Man movies, you don't have to make necessarily Ant-Man as the prime recipient of the audience's wonder, if that makes sense. So there can be all sorts of other things going on, and the excuse to put your audience through those other things is the fact that you're going to be getting Paul Rudd as Ant-Man. Here, one of those other things is an introduction to Kang. Kang seems to me to be a proper level villain for a phase level event. Now, Kevin Feige in the past has done a lot of talking about moving forward, we're going to get out of the whole phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 sort of thing. But I think old habits die hard. And I think there will still be a bit of that phase thing going on. And you're going to need a big bad that is worthy of the formation of a new team of Avengers. This phase 4-ish thing that seems to be going on in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is all about time travel, is all about multidimensionality, is all about the quantum. Kang is the perfect villain for that. Kang is the perfect villain to exploit those things. And he's certainly the proper level of villain that is necessary to bring together a new team of Avengers. But we're also, another thing to talk about with that movie is that I think it is possible that we will be getting an Avengers 3 type of movie for Kang, Avengers 3 being the one where Thanos won. And the reason I say that is that Cassie as Stature, Cassie being Ant-Man's daughter, who will also have powers, seems to be playing into the fact that we are going to be getting a Young Avengers franchise. If we're getting a Young Avengers franchise, how better to kick that off than by having Kang come and stomp a mud hole into the whole lot of them for the first movie. Then maybe prompting... So we've got a lot of things going on that have alternate teams to the Avengers cropping up. The Thunderbolts, for example. We'll get into that a little bit later. But if Kang is that big bad, and we have a phase 4 type quantum dimensional time theme, then what we can be doing with that is setting up several different teams of proximate Avengers and setting the stage for bigger threats. Thanos took up a whole lot of time. I don't think Kang is going to take up that much time, which is okay, because after him, we have the Fantastic Four, and the Fantastic Four happen to have a pretty big villain of their own. A couple, in fact. So it will be interesting to see how these things are pursued. But I want to talk a little bit more about the Disney Plus announcements, especially coming off of the tail of the second season of The Mandalorian, which was a fantastic, fantastic entry to Disney Plus. Both seasons were, really. But season 2 of The Mandalorian really took things up in scale. And it makes me hopeful for the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe on Disney Plus. And the first thing that was announced, which actually I'll skip that one for now. I'm going to go to Moon Knight. Moon Knight, the big thing that was announced with Moon Knight was actually a lack of announcement, and they did not announce an actor attached to play the character of Moon Knight. And another thing that they did play up that I am surprised that they played up was the multiple personality disorder element of Moon Knight. I was expecting, in this PC world in which we live, for the whole mental health aspect of this to go underwritten. But it seems they're going to lean into it, and I am curious how they're going to pull it off and make it so. In the comic books, it is ham. It is pulp. It is not particularly real-world accurate. I am wondering how they're going to do this in the MCU and put it on Disney Plus with it feeling more... So it would be possible to tell these stories with someone struggling from a mental health disorder, instead of feeling like a character exploiting something that you can Wikipedia, which is how it occasionally comes off in the comics. So I'm excited for that part, but I am also under some apprehension over the fact that an actor was not announced to play the character. It makes me wonder how far along they are actually with that series and how long it's going to be before we get it, especially considering that Oscar Isaac had been rumored to not just be connected, but to have accepted. And when you're talking about launch dates, everything's already moved back at least 6 months. I think we were supposed to get Falcon and the Winter Soldier last summer. So if they're not already to the point where they're casting this thing, have there been serious hiccups, serious hitches in the get-up? The next thing I want to talk about, which was a big surprise to me. So I'm only talking about the things that were announced, not the things that we always knew we were getting, like WandaVision, like what is it, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, like the Hawkeye series. I'm not talking about those things because we knew we were getting them. Secret Invasion was announced, and it makes me wonder if this is a thread which will be unraveled into Phase 5 as opposed to Phase 4. In the comic books, there's a lot of this that has to do with Nick Fury, with the Young Avengers, with the Thunderbolts, and even some mutants. So it makes me wonder if there's going to be an introduction of a mutant or some mutants herein. But a few of the things that are exciting is, so the Marvel Cinematic Universe has never really taken one of these things, these storylines from the comics, and completely done it 100% accurately to the comic books. They always change things, but it always works. It's always for a reason. It's always sensible. A few of the things that happen in the comic version of this is that the Baxter Building is disappeared. The Baxter Building, of course, being the base of the Fantastic Four. I wonder if they're going to throw some doubt onto the Fantastic Four that early into them being, or are they yet in the Marvel Cinematic Universe by the time that the Secret Invasion series drops. Another thing is that there was an attack on S.H.I.E.L.D. S.H.I.E.L.D. is basically dismembered during this time. Can you pull that stunt again? S.H.I.E.L.D. sort of made a little bit of a reemergence after Captain America, the Winter Soldier, despite the fact that Captain America disarmed the whole damn thing. Much in the same way that in Iron Man 2, or Iron Man 3, Tony Stark quit being Iron Man, but at the beginning of the Avengers 2, he's just Iron Man again. That was sort of the way that S.H.I.E.L.D. reemerged as well, and it makes me wonder if you can pull that stunt again. But the big thing that happens in Secret Invasion that I'm looking forward to is that there is a breakout on the Raft. The Raft being S.H.I.E.L.D.'s... I think below S.H.I.E.L.D. S.H.I.E.L.D.'s floating prison that we have seen several times in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, most notably in Captain America Civil War, where Helmet... why am I blanking on the bad guy's name? Anyway, they actually go to that prison. Hawkeye is kept there. I think Don Cheadle is kept there as well because they broke the Sokovia Accords. That thing, that floating prison, is basically just a big old mystery bag of bad guys. So, if the Raft is breached, there is no telling what characters we will be able to see from time to time, what characters we will have pop up, and will not need explanation. So, for example, if it was Sabretooth, we happen to get a cameo from Sabretooth, and it's after the breach on the Raft, we don't have to ask where he came from there. If it's before, why was this guy floating around for so long, killing people, like Sabretooth is one to do, and we just never heard of him? So it sets up a whole lot of possibility for getting characters that won't need explanations or origins, which is exciting. Next, we have Armor Wars, which will be a series starring Don Cheadle as War Machine. What happens? The main crux of this is what happens when Tony Stark's technology falls into the wrong hands. So I think we're going to be getting a return of Justin Hammer. Justin Hammer, one of those people who would hypothetically have been on the Raft. So I don't know if that is a straight up admission that we will be getting a breakout from the Raft, but it would be interesting. In the comics, Armor Wars included Justin Hammer. So it will be exciting to see if we get a return from the Justin Hammer character. I really enjoyed that character. And moving forward with the Justin Hammer character, that's an inclusion on the Thunderbolts, right? There's a lot of things you can do with him. There are a lot of ways. I hope he is not another disposable villain. I hope that he's not just killed off, because there's a lot of things that Justin Hammer could bring into existence, and could also, if we're moving forward on this list, play as a main foil to the hero from the final announcement, which was Ironheart, from also known as Riri Williams. Justin Hammer could certainly be a foil for Riri Williams in the same way that he started to be a foil for Tony Stark's Iron Man before being done away with. Ironheart will have her own series, which is a little bit perplexing. Came a little bit out of nowhere, but it makes me wonder a couple things. Number one, will this be a crossover with Don Cheadle's Armor Wars, because they are both Iron Man type characters? Riri Williams, of course, being a character who designed her own Iron Person's suit. The most advanced tech since Tony Stark. It also makes me wonder if we will be getting a new Iron Man character, as we have all of this time travel, interdimensional, quantum scape stuff going on. Are we going to get a new Tony Stark? So those were all of the Disney investments from Marvel Day. From Disney, all of the Marvel announcements from Disney Investor Day. I don't know what I was saying there. I am most excited, I think, about the Moon Knight series. I've been a fan of the Moon Knight character for a very long time, and I'm hoping that that series does the character some type of justice. Is there anything that you are excited about coming to us from the Marvel half of the Disney Investor Day announcements? Um, Let me know, because it is going to be exciting to see all of these things. And like I said, The Mandalorian gave me a whole lot of hope for quality on Disney Plus and for the thoroughness of storytelling and the violence of action. There was a lot of violence, a lot of uh, very thorough violence on The Mandalorian, so it makes me excited that we will not be getting anything watered down simply because it is on Disney Plus. But again, let me know how you feel about these announcements coming from Disney's Marvel, and what you are most looking forward to.